Ole, hola, ole, and bienvenidos, mis amigos, to Madmen Cross the Water, the adventures of the Sons of Town Hall, tales of heart, of hope, of humanity, from the dockside to the mountainside, from the open sea to the open table. It is I, Elias B. Worthington, your trusted host and historian, admirer and archivist for our groundbreaking duo.
Madmen cross the water to get from A to B. Madmen cross the water, just you wait and see.
When we spoke last, I was in Pamplona, describing the most unusual of endings to the festival of San Fermin, whereby our protagonists managed, in front of God and country, to pacify 6 fighting Spanish bulls and kill 24 pious pilgrims. As might be assumed, after that monumental day, the triumphant twosome was celebrated throughout the region for their benevolence and their bravery. Well, I hope our sponsors won't deem me irresponsible when they learn that I'm still in Spain. For obvious reasons, it is hard to leave this land of light and love, just as it was hard, though ultimately overwhelmingly necessary, for the boys to leave, particularly Josiah, as we shall soon see. Know, though, that I have kept to a thrifty budget, some days not even exhausting the modest per diem I have granted myself. Nonetheless, the peseta goes very far here, particularly in the stunning city of San Sebastian, where Sons of Town Hall went after leaving Pamplona. It was there that their Spanish sojourn reached a peak, and then came to an unappetizing end. So, I have left my modest accommodations in Pamplona, and fair Lourdes, who I never gathered the nerve to confess to, and relocated to the cobbled old town such that I might narrate from one of the many tabernas where the boys became fixtures. And it is easy to see why they liked it here. I am looking over a bar spread to near comic proportions with the most delicious and delightful pinchos. Maria, the dark-haired barmaid, has just filled my glass with the crisp, sparkling white this region is so known for. The people here do know how to live. How else can I put it? So it is no wonder that this is where Josiah and George found themselves, in the last stage of their excursiones en España. Speaking as I just was of sponsors, let us pause before we begin for a word from today's.
Arrais Epsom salts.
Got the gout, feeling constipated, itching all over, boils and sores. Well, worry no more. Get a sack of Arrais Epsom salt today and soak your suffering away. Ask for it by name at your local apothecary. Arrais Epsom salt, your soothing solution. Get Arrais today. Soak your suffering away.
Arrais Epsom, Arrais Epsom, Arrais Epsom salts.
Not exactly what I want to be thinking as I head for my late afternoon lunch, but alas, it's good to know Ernie is out there with a remedy should it be needed. Now then, the summer was beginning to turn toward autumn in Basque country. The rains had returned and the tourists finally were going back from whence they came. The shoulder season was upon the lads, the time the locals like best, when the sea was still warm, but the nights had begun to hold a hint of the coming winter, when the grapes were ripening on the vine and the mists hugged the fields in the morning. Without really any sense of purpose, the boys made their way north from Pamplona, through forests and farmland, and over the Great Pyrenees, until eventually the cobalt waters of the beautiful Bay of Biscay were once again back in their sights.
Espera. What about the letters, Elias?
Maria, it's that beautiful bartender. Is she talking to me? How do you know about our letters?
Pero hombre, ¿cómo? What do you mean this how? I listen to every one of these episodes.
You don't?
Por supuesto I do.
Oh, well, I'm flattered. I didn't know you... Well, I didn't know you even noticed me, let alone listened.
Big handsome man like you. Por favor, Elias, I notice.
Oh, hi.
And I tell mis amigas of you, and I tell sus amigas. ¿Quién está en mi taberna? I tell them. You must notice so many people staring at you.
Well, no.
Y recibimos muchos y muchos letters mailed here to the bar from fans from admirers. So por favor, Eli, read one. Uno al menos.
Maria, I had no idea. No idea at all. Wow. That's a lot of letters. Well, I'll certainly read one.
Gracias, guapo.
I don't know what that means, but I'm flattered. Let's see now. How about this one? From none other than John Ringling North, son of Ida Ringling, who was, as I'm sure you know, the youngest and only sister of the Ringling brothers, founders of the great Ringling Brothers Circus. John Ringling North presided over the whole travelling show for many, many years. And so it goes without saying, we were honoured to hear from him.
Send in your letters, send in your love for the attention of Elias B.
Dear Elias, I know the Sons of Town Hall have moved on to other lands and other lore, but I must say that, not surprisingly, given my family history, your telling of George and Josiah's stint with the circus in New Orleans has really stayed with me. I can't get the image of Ella's tragic fall out of my mind. I know that George and Josiah have gone on to write many gorgeous songs, not all of which are sad, but I just wanted them to know that support exists if they need it. In fact, my family founded the Big Top Trauma Center up here in Wisconsin for performers, audience members, and even animals the circus may have traumatized. Should either George or Josiah ever need a pair of listening ears or a shoulder to cry on, your darn tootin' our tent flap is always open. And it should go without saying that if either or both of them should ever be in need of employment, the circus will welcome them back with open arms and 3 rings. To say we'd be honored is an understatement. From one great show to another. John Ringling North.
Send in your letters, send in your love for the attention of Elias B.
Thank you, John. I too wonder how they overcame that horrible episode, or if indeed they did overcome it, and I will pass on the message. I'm sure the honour would be all theirs, but I'm also quite certain that the circus is just about the least likely venue they'll return to. They visited enough, I'm sure, in their nightmares. But today we find them trying to overcome another demon. And overcome it they will. You see, it will take a mighty hand to deliver them a final blow, and I have yet to encounter a hand sufficiently mighty. So where were we? Yes. The boys walked the verdant hills toward the sea, and children and wives, even farm animals, came out to greet George and Josiah on their path. All wanted a glimpse of the great bull runners. Indeed, even all the way up in the regal city of San Sebastian, they found that their reputation had preceded them. And for what was no doubt a first and likely a last for the boys, that reputation was a good one. They were celebrated immediately for their heroics in Pamplona. They were greeted not with a warning from the law, but with an embrace from the mayor and his young wife. There's a Basque saying which translates roughly as, "A friend of a bull is a friend of mine." For obvious reasons, the saying doesn't get much use, but it is believed, and so our brave bards were basically given the keys to the city. Despite the hourly ringing of the big brass bell hanging above the Cathedral of the Good Shepherd just around the corner from where I now sit, this is a timeless town. Calle de San Jeronimo looks very much today as it did then. And this taberna, whose name I am withholding at the request of Maria, for fear it will be overrun by sons of town hall admirers the world over, has not changed all that much over the years. In fact, the sounds you hear now, if you listen, the laughter, the glasses being filled and drained, the toasts in multiple languages, the satisfied belches of the seafarers, the whispering of young lovers, even the lilting melody that Maria hums as she serves, why, they were much the same sounds you'd have heard when George and Josiah were here. Stories and songs are shared. The revelry spills out onto the streets, and beside the crashing of the waves, no matter whether under stars or rain, the wine continues to pour. The boys were quickly offered employment. Everyone and his sister wanted to be affiliated with the handsome heroes. It was right here, in fact, while sipping sangria and entertaining a crowd with an exaggerated telling of their time with the toros, Ignacio, Nacho to his friends, and his wife Esmeralda took them on as grape crushers on their vineyard. The terms were more than fair. All the wine they could drink from the cellars, an open tab for food at this very establishment, and lodging in one of the several stone outbuildings on their property. On first blush, grape stomping might be assumed to be a job requiring little training and even less skill, and, well, that is in fact exactly the case. However, it does require an uncommon brand of stamina and focus. I've tried my foot at it once, and I can assure you it did not go well. Here's how they describe it.
The heady aroma of foot on fruit makes many men and many ladies giddy. The sound of the squashing and the feel of the wet mush on the bare skin has been known to cause bouts of nausea, uncontrolled laughter, and certainly slippage.
Most, at some point or another, go fully down and under, falling face first into the slop. Injuries are more frequent than you might assume. Toes get stubbed, wrists get broken, groins are pulled, backs go out.
It's an all too common sight in these parts, a regional walk of shame, the Great Limp, as it's called, when after getting hurt on the job a stomper hobbles away from a vineyard with eyes downcast and limbs purpled.
The lads, however, took to trampling with a never-before-seen technique, developing a dance that many of you may have heard of. Perhaps you've even danced it a time or two. It's still popular in the schoolyards and social halls across northern Spain. It was dubbed the Dionysian double stomp, and it was none other than George and Josiah who created it.
First, we rolled our pants up real high.
Real high.
It was a look that came natural to us.
Yeah, but even higher.
We crossed our arms at the chest.
I'm never sure why we did that, but it did seem to work.
Then, beginning at either side of the bat, we leapt and bounced on one leg toward one another.
We'd meet in the middle, kick our legs into the sky, which sprayed grape skins and nectar onto our bare chests and faces, and then, tapping our feet together, we'd cry out a
Huzzah! Like many traditional Basque dances, we'd then encircle each other at a hop, both arms held up high, then continue stomping off toward the other man's corner.
Finally, the whole dance would start again, and it all continued until every last grape was completely flattened, ideally increasing in vigour and intensity with every turn until the job was done.
As you might imagine, the boys drew quite the crowd. The Basques had never seen such a sight. Josiah and George liked nothing if not an audience, and so the onlookers only intensified their performance. There was a ring around the boys most of the day, with everyone doing her best version of their routine. On a good day, hundreds of people were on hand to watch and partake, and the chaps might work through some 15 troughs. If you know anything about grape crushing, that is an almost unimaginable sum, particularly in that part of the world, what with their long siestas and leisurely lunches. The dedicated duo hardly took a break, undaunted by the elements or by their appetites, which their admirers had to assume were somehow satisfied by the juice soaking through their skin. They worked from sun up until well after sundown, and of course, they sang a song while they worked. The crowds who gathered sang along. So their legend grew.
Not cerveza, but vino. Vino's what we drink when the sun goes down. Con Camila y Gabriela, we'll dance and spin those señoritas round.
Nacho and Esmeralda often had to tell them it was time to stop for the day. Otherwise, it wasn't clear they'd ever stop. The boys would then wash in the nearby stream, after which they were carried on the backs of donkeys or on the backs of the villagers themselves down into the narrow, winding streets of this mythic town and into the very taberna where I now sit. George and Josiah would shoulder up to the bar to drink from the fruit of lesser men's labours and to fill their bellies with delicacies, the likes of which they had never before and would never again taste.
Our reputation as crushers soon eclipsed that even of bull runners and bull tamers. We were invited to other vineyards to demonstrate our method and to train other workers.
We were brought into schoolhouses to perform the dance. We became true cultural icons in that part of the world. And you'd often hear the locals whistling the very melody of our song. Even our manner of dress caught on.
In fact, if you visit your local library, something I recommend you do, and dive deep into the microfiche for pictures from the region dating back to those days, you'll see that most men have their pants rolled up nearly to the knee.
I think we're to thank, or depending on your perspective on style, to blame. In fact, we came quite close to giving up music entirely to pursue dance professionally.
And they were paid for every appearance. Those were the salad days, as the Basque expression goes. The first time George and Josiah actually had some spending money, though, ironically, they had nothing to spend it on. They were still sleeping on the vineyard for free, and try as they did, no one would accept their coin for food and drink. But by Jupiter's beard did they ever eat. And it was actually these very pinchos, which I can't get enough of, that we have to thank for them not becoming dancers. Because, as they devoured plate after plate of delicacy after delicacy, well, it began to show. It's safe to say that our hungry heroes' plates looked much like mine do now, stacked with
salty Serrano ham and manchego, grilled octopus, skewers of wonderful green olives stuffed with anchovies, wild mushrooms, and perfectly fried eggs, buttery pastry filled with fresh crab and cream, roasted blood sausages infused with sage, and perfectly prepared tortilla.
And while they were eating like kings, they were also drinking like jesters. Neither of them had drank much wine in the past, gravitating by necessity toward the more affordable ales or stronger liquors. But both quickly became, shall we say, quite enamoured with the juice of September.
When the fruit is ripe and the sun shines bright, we roll up our tight pantalones. We stomp all the juice from every grape in sight. Pero por la noche.
And all this, you see, began to be the problem. For they continued to feast and imbibe for free through the end of the autumn and well into the winter, long after the work had dried up and so long after they were exercising all day on the job. And thus began an odd and seldom mentioned parenthetical in the history of the Sons of Town Hall. For the first time in his adult life, Josiah began to, how can I put this delicately, retain a bit more than did George. When I got together with the boys to discuss this trip, I pulled George aside to ask him about what happened and ran the reel-to-reel.
He got fat. Plain and simple. Try as I did to get him to control himself, there was nothing I could do to get between him and his cured meat.
What was the first sign that maybe there was a problem?
Sweat.
Sweat?
Yeah. By then it had already grown cold, but he was always mopping his brow with his pocket silks, sweating through his shirt sleeves, even his scarves.
Sounds terrible.
Disgusting. And then it was the snoring. Kept me up most of the night. He rattled and rumbled, made sounds I'd never heard before, like a one-man Dixie band with his whistling and wheezing, and not melodic in the least. Strange that a man who sings like an angel could sound so bad whilst asleep, But I guess with all that skin and blubber flapping around, you're not going to make the nicest of sounds.
Strange indeed. I can't imagine any sound coming from Josiah's mouth that wasn't glorious.
Yeah, well, you weren't sleeping beside him in a stone building on a vineyard outside of San Sebastian in the winter of '98, were you?
No, indeed I wasn't. Wish I were, but indeed I wasn't.
Then maybe the hardest part was when he couldn't button his trousers. We always could share clothes, but not anymore. We had one trunk between us, but he couldn't fit into anything. He had to get a farm girl that was fond of him to sew in extensions, a good 3 inches extra. So he had to set out and divide everything. I'll take this pair of trousers, you take that pair of trousers. It was awful. It was like a divorce.
What about you, though? Weren't you gaining weight as well?
Well, that's the weirdest thing. That's what really stuck in his craw. See, we were more or less eating the same amount. I just didn't show it. In fact, I felt healthy as a horse.
Genes of a butcher, I suppose.
Metabolism of a musk ox.
So you didn't show it?
Not a gram, but his jawline was gone. His ankles swelled, and strangest of all, he just couldn't get his beret on anymore. Who knew that you could put on weight around your forehead?
It was the first time the two seemed to be on divergent paths, and it didn't sit well with either of them. It was like breaking up brothers. Their silhouettes, so strikingly similar and svelte up until that point, began to look laughably distinct. Thick and thin they became, like Laurel and Hardy. It came between them. It nearly broke them. A few of the locals corroborated the story.
The darker, long-haired one, Joseph, I think his name was. He no longer could keep up. He was missing his moves. He collapsed sometimes mid-stride during the dance.
Pitiful. He was always panting, trying to catch his breath. Pathetic. And the sweat, like a hog in heat. It was hard to watch.
Dios mío, did he throw back the vino? Never beer, no, just bottle after bottle of the vino.
Not cerveza, but vino. Vino's what we drink when the sun goes down. Con Camila y Gabriela, we'll dance and spin those señoritas round. We'll dance and spin those señoritas round. 'Cause vino's what we drink when the sun goes down.
Now, the more astute observers among you may have noticed that the end of '98, well into the beginning of the new century, was not the most productive time for the Sons of Town Hall. Indeed, they didn't write a single song during those months and years, and until now, maybe you weren't clear about why.
The extra weight made it hard for him to sing. And that's when I knew we really had a problem on our hands. The breath just wasn't there for him to hit the high notes, just to hold those notes. He just couldn't do it.
What did you do?
Well, what could I do? There was food everywhere in that town. Everyone wanted to buy us a drink. He loved it so much. He just couldn't stop himself.
But eventually you got out. You're here now.
Yeah, well, I was worried that he was going to die. I'd heard about this guy who ate and drank himself to death in Bolivia. Literally exploded. I couldn't let that happen, so I devised a plan. I had to tie him up. It was the only way to do it. Nacho helped, Esmeralda helped. There were a few of us in on it, for he was just far too heavy for me.
You roped him?
Yeah, like a hog. Hog-tied him, in his sleep, kicking and shouting all the way down to the dock, and all the while he's in some sort of hunger haze, crying out for various quesos and carnes, begging us to let him stay, cursing curses I'd prefer to forget, biting at the ropes and at our hands.
I'm starving. I haven't eaten for hours. It's been at least an hour since last I ate. Please, I'm begging you. I need some of those pinchos. Please, y vino, los pinchos y el vino, por favor.
In all honesty, dear listeners, as today's tale approaches its conclusion, and thus my sojourn in Spain, let me tell you, I can relate to not wanting to leave. I, too, face the prospect of having to return to bland fare, buttoned blazers, and grey skies. You see, just like Josiah, I have come to love it here. The more the Spanish sun shines on my pale and freckled face, The deeper I dip my bread into the olive oil, the looser I have knotted my bow tie. And maybe you can hear it in my voice, my friends, but I swear if you could see me in the flesh, you'd surely mark the change. I don't even have my dinner jacket on. My shirt collar, too, remains unbuttoned. In fact, for the first time in years, I feel a twinge of true happiness in my heart, and even, I'm willing to admit, a long-forgotten stirring in my loins. Indeed, they may have to tie me up and drag me out, pockets stuffed with pinchos. Ultimately, the intervention, if that's what we can call it, worked. The two boarded a fishing boat back to England. It wasn't the way either wanted it to end, but it was perhaps the only possible way for them to escape that land of plenty. So let us leave them there, sailing the sail of shame from San Sebastian and its many delights against their will, or at least against Josiah's will. It took a long time for them to get over this period and for Josiah to regain his running weight. But, as the Basque saying goes, time has a way of smoothing out every bulge and wrinkle. And when we catch up with the lads again, Spain will seem like one drawn-out, delicious dream. So now, it is just up to me to pull myself from this taberna, to say goodbye to Maria, and to try to make my way home. Wish me luck, dear listeners, wish me luck. For now, I am Elias B. Worthington, saying adios from España and hasta la vista. Links to the Sons of Town Hall website and social media can be found in the episode description.
To support Madmen Cross the Water, share these episodes with someone you love, and go to patreon.com/Sons of Town Hall.